hello. I want to share where I've come in my brainstorming around how to improve concentration and energy capacity. By concentration, I mean, well, by energy capacity, I mean the amount of energy that you have in general, like on a daily basis, in a or weekly basis or whatever, like the average amount of energy that you have to do things. And concentration is just your ability to, use that energy, channel it, whatever, right? So at its core, what I'm trying to develop is my ability to do things and my capacity to do things and do them mm, with more intense focus and to ultimately have, greater output, be able to be and do more things. Because having no energy to do things literally means to loss of self. You cannot be yourself without the energy to be yourself, right? I'm not gonna go too deep into that right now, but that's why it's important, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Where have I come to? So far, my beliefs are that it's not something that is just genetic or based on your age or just on your health. It is something like a muscle that you need to condition. It's something similar to how if you want to make your body strong, you must condition it. And um, condition it through proper training. I'm not using the word training because training on its own does not actually lead to growth. It's conditioning that leads to growth. A training is just a part of conditioning. Let's break that down. What do I think plays into conditioning? Um, from my understanding, where I got to is you must um, maintain a certain load. What I mean by that is if you were to stop, you know, doing anything, stop training or loading your brain, let's say, um, or your body, then it's going to slowly adapt to the lesser load, and therefore you're gonna become weaker, weaker, and weaker over time. You're gonna become frail. Um, and if you were to train way too much and go way above your limits, you're gonna end up hurting yourself beyond repair, or you're gonna force yourself into a repair slash rest cycle. So conditioning is generally something that requires time, but time doing the proper approach. And what I think that is, there's two different types or stages to conditioning. There is, um, uh, let's say you have your uh, limit. Um, let's say something like that. Your limit is, I don't know, let's say 100% of your capability. Bum. Okay, no, let me think of a different way to put it. You have your average load, which is going to be your mediocre, like your starting point. This is your maintenance load. This is for everyone is going to be different. For example, for a world-class athlete, for them to maintain their physique, they need to train regularly and maintain a certain amount of load. For an average person, that same amount of load is going to be above average and it's actually going to improve their body and therefore, condition them to be stronger. Or maybe it will injure them, right? You have to understand where your 0 point is and then go from there. What the goal of conditioning is to permanently or for long term um, to move your 0 point towards your um, towards a higher point. You're trying to offset your 0 point, right? So, and let's say for you to be average, like there's gonna be a standard distribution of activities that you do. Most of your activities are going to be. Oh, holy shit! This curve sucks. It doesn't matter. It just triggers me. That is so bad. Holy shit. Um. Okay, perfect. I'm happy with this curve. Um. So usually most of the things that you do, some of them are going to be below average, some of them are going to be above average. It's going to typically fall under a bell curve, the things that you do, right? And um, it's not that everything that you do is exactly the same. There's going to be some things that you do that are pretty intense, some things that are below intense, but as a whole, you sit within a certain range and you have a certain medium or whatever. If you were to stay too far here for too long, you're gonna injure yourself. If you're gonna stay too far too long here, you're gonna end up hurting yourself, right? So my approach, well, there's the approach of like kind of shocking the system, where you just go grind and then you tank you like maximize the extremes. This is what I call the roller coaster, where someone goes on these manic periods and they feel like a god for like 2 weeks, and then they hit a fucking depressive cycle that lasts maybe a month, or uh, it varies person to person. But it's where someone performs way above their average, burn the fuck out, and then crash out. Unfortunately, this does not lead to long-term conditioning, because it's too extreme and its recovery cycle is way too slow and it doesn't allow you to kind of properly develop a sense of what it means to be to properly control the higher uh, pacing of life, let's say. um, the way I think of it more is it's like trying to learn how to steer, except for you're trying to learn how to steer your body and develop your capacity to do so. And if you were to try to learn how to steer, you're gonna find a speed at which you're just barely comfortable steering, and if you were to lose focus, you would go off track. Um, wait, let me explain this a little bit better. Um, let me just elaborate the example I was giving. So let's imagine you're a car following a track, right? If you were driving and your um steering is off just by a little bit, right? Like a really small angle. Let's say 5 degrees, right? It seems like um not that big of a deal compared initially, but if you were to move very slowly, first of all, if you were to move really slowly, it's not that big of a deal. You steer off, and then you can correct yourself, right? And you're gonna stay on track, and even if you steer pretty poorly, you're going to be able to adjust yourself whenever you see that you're going off track, right? Um, forget that last one. Right. So you're going to be able to stay on track even if your steering is pretty bad, as long as you um, are going slow enough. What happens when the person with the same level of steering skill, as in like they're going to be off by the same angle, starts to try and steer at a faster speed? It's the same, like these lines become longer. And as you can see, it becomes much closer to going off-road, right? This is the medium example. And now if I were to do an extreme example where now the person is going not 2 times faster, but 3 times faster, suddenly, immediately he just goes off track. Immediately. And what illustrates is your steering skill is not an issue when you're going slowly. And the faster you go, the more importance there is to steer yourself properly. And in steering, I mean like your ability to properly, like precisely do something. Precision, it does not matter at low speeds, it matters at high speeds, right? Um, so, for you to kind of apply this to your life, think of times whenever you were doing something at like an extreme. Some people are actually really prone to really like driving really fast. Let's say some people's brains just function like are very prone to being really fast RPM, and some people are really chill and work really slowly. For example, something like anxiety is actually your brain steering really fast and you not having the proper skill developed to stay firm on the road. So because you're bad at steering, you're going off road and you're having these panic and your brain is unwieldy, right? You're losing control all the time. Panic attacks, someone like going out of control, raging, schizo episodes, all that shit like that is people going off road, right? Um, and then you have these like really kind of like slow people, and then they're like, if you pay attention to those people, they never have any of these problems. Slow people don't have anxiety. Slow people aren't prone to manic episodes. Slow people aren't prone to fucking schizo shit. It's always um people that are overwhelmed in their mind, people that are going very fast. And um you can like cross-reference that with your own experiences. If there were periods in time when you were like really fast, you're really like by fast, I mean your brain moving at like fast RPM. It's firing many thoughts, and there's a lot of energy behind those thoughts. It's like a car that's moving fast. So I'm just gonna say high RPM from now on instead of fast. So when your brain is high RPM, you're gonna notice that you're way more like you're gonna reach your like highs, but you're gonna crash really, really hard when you do crash, when you're going fast. Um, um, so this is why your biggest highs also can lead to the lowest lows. It's similar to this concept. Um, and uh, then what is kind of tempting to do, and this is what I did for quite a while, was kind of like reject the idea of going fast and like slow the fuck down. Slow yourself way down and try to, well, in my case specifically, I learned to not to go fast because I learned a really negative association with going fast. I learned that every single time I went fast, I would crash hard and I would end up in a fucking 2 or 3 week like complete depressive state where I am drained, I don't want to do anything, I fucking wanna I literally don't even want to be here after these, right? And um and not because of like oh depressive thoughts. I literally just don't have the energy to want positive things. I just am completely like a shell of myself in those weeks, right? And um for example, this is why the idea of like go hard, don't be a bitch, like David Goggins mindset actually only works for David Goggins because he's relatively slow. He is a really stupid person on average, like compared to average person. If you apply David Goggins' mindset and you're someone who moves at high RPM, you are going to destroy yourself. So it only works for these kind of like people that are very slow RPM, which David Goggins is, right? That strategy works for him because it's like a slow car pushing itself to be much faster. Good job, it works. But Not everyone's a fast car, and he's a way below average car, speed wise, right? And um, so if you're a fast car, you can't go stay hard, go hard. You can't do this whole brutal mindset towards yourself. You're gonna crash out. What do? You need to learn how to steer. You need to, number one, slow down briefly with the intent of speeding up once your steering has improved. So, for example, in this case of a road, I can see that if I was just like maybe this speed ish, I could probably stay on the road even like just barely. Like I have to try pretty hard and be pretty locked in to stay on the road, but I'm gonna stay on the road. It's within my capabilities, right? This is what I call my um, speed limit, because if I go past this limit, I end up crashing something, right? This is my genuine limit. Yes, I can go faster than it, but at that limit, I end up braking. So it's actually going beyond my limit. Does that make sense? So I can go beyond my limit and brake myself, or I can stay at my limit, even though I can technically, go further than it, right? So, um, once if I stay just at my limit, what am I able to do? I'm able to adjust my steering and work on it, and my limit becomes better and deeper and strong, and it becomes my limit gets pushed further because my steering has improved, right? So I should, if I were to cross this line where I cross past my limit, I will now like drive onto the ditch and I'll have to face this really slow recovery time. So the goal is to never drive into the ditch. Do not surpass your limit. How should I say? You surpass your limit as in by improving your steering, but not by pushing yourself like a delusional person who's just like not respecting his own limits. Like accept your current body's limits. Do not like delude yourself. Do not kind of go like most people out of weakness kind of cope about their limits. For example, let's say my steering level is like really bad. My steering is this bad, so my limit is actually really small, right? Like this is my limit. I have to go pretty fucking slowly, otherwise I'm gonna crash out. And this is gonna be quite a lot of people, especially ones with really fucked up childhoods, right? Like, um, your limit is gonna be really small, right? And because you're so far behind, you're almost like stressed about being so far behind, and that stress is going to make you want to like push further because you can't accept the fact of how weak you are, how low your limit is, and you end up kind of like over overshooting your limit because you can't accept your limit. Does that make sense? Like, let's say I'm a really bad driver. I don't know, I first time driving, and I have a friend who's like a race car driver, and I see him, and I want to be as good as my friend, but um, and I can't, for whatever mental like reason, accept myself for my flaws. What I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna go and try to go as fast as my friend, even though I don't have the capacity to do that. I do not have the skill to do that, and that's where people end up, applying way too much force and crashing out, and then, long term being even worse and being stuck, right? Every single time, whenever they have energy and they're motivated, they just crash out. I was kind of stuck in a cycle where I would go through these roller coasters where I finally recovered. I would go way too fast, crash, then go through depressive episodes when I would finally recover because I was so impatient and I wanted to get things so fast and I couldn't accept my own real situation. I couldn't assess it properly. I would try harder than I was capable of doing. I would go faster than my limit. And um, that kept me tracked because at the end of the day, what allows you to learn how to steer is the amount of time that you have on track and also how fast your speed is. For example, why it's best to learn. Okay, actually, I'm gonna get onto this. I'm not gonna. Uh, I said a statement, but I'm going to confirm it in just a couple of minutes, as I'm gonna get there naturally. One sec, the slides are just annoying me. Okay, so um, once you realize that going too fast is bad, it's kind of tempting to go really, really slow and keep yourself protected. But that's also a mistake because you end up slowly degrading. Your average ends up dropping or it ends up being the same, so you stop progressing. You either go below average or stay average, and either way, you're not progressing. And if you're kind of slow, then that kind of sucks. That's kind of like accepting I'm slow, I'm going to be slow for the rest of my life. This is my lot in life. Um, and that definitely doesn't benefit you. Um, it's definitely better than crashing for sure, but it's another mistake. What is best is to stay just at your limit, where you have kind of a chance to crash, uh, but put in your effort to like staying on the road as much as possible. This is kind of like requires a lot of grit, a lot of attention. For example, um, let's say um, I'm gonna use the original line that I used for the green and the red lines. Um, so let's say if I'm going at really fast speed, like the red line speed, my margin of error is really small. Like I have, um, uh, if I don't like react almost perfectly, I'm gonna end up crashing. But if I go a little bit slower, I have a bigger margin of error, right? So I have a little bit more time, even if I like react a little bit slower to the fact that I'm going off-road, or I like lose focus for a couple seconds. I have those extra couple seconds maybe to react and uh, compensate for my lapse of focus. So, uh, but if I were to go really, really slow, kind of like green line speed slow, then I'm gonna end up in a situation where now I'm really safe. I have a really big margin of error. Um, so, uh, and that seems optimal because you're like, at least I don't crash. And yeah, you're right. But um, at the end of the day, steering is created by, or steering is improved by. Okay, I'm gonna explain another concept, which is gonna help you understand this. It's something I came to relatively recently, and I call it survival pressure. Uh, survive, survival. What? Okay. Survival pressure. How does that play into this? Survival pressure. What I mean by survival pressure is that uh, only behaviors that, sorry, we need survival pressure or just pressure in general, but survival pressure is just another way of saying it. To get rid of and create an environment where there is proper filtering of behaviors. Um, Let me give an example and then I'll elaborate. Um, so right now, in certain countries or whatever, we have certain like uh things are on the rise. For example, obesity. I don't even know how to spell it, bro. My second language. Okay, I have an excuse. Obesity. And the question is, why does obesity exist in a 2026? You're gonna look at, yeah, I don't know. If you ask people, they're gonna be like, they're putting chemicals in your food. There's too much, people aren't exercising, blah blah blah. Oh, that is bullshit. Yes, those are things that play into it, but those are not actually the reason why obesity exists. The reason obesity exists right now is because there's no survival pressure for obesity to not exist. As in, it's not a survival condition anymore. Whilst previously, if you were obese and you had to hunt to find, you know, hunt on prey and do like a lot of work, physical, and move around a lot, being obese would have been a severe enough disadvantage that if you were obese, you probably would have died. You would have not survived. So you would have had survival pressure for obesity in terms of like you need to not be obese for you to survive and thrive in your environment. But now, obesity, you don't die if you're obese. You're fine. You go to a supermarket, you drive, you don't hunt prey. If you're obese, you're not going to die. And because of that, we don't have survival pressure for obesity. You're not pressured to not be obese. And if we were to change that, let's say today we got, I don't know, thrown back into the Stone Age and everyone was forced, well, um, and everyone was to exist in this new environment. You're gonna say like, are the obese people gonna stay obese and then just die out, or are they going to adapt and because of survival pressure and stop being obese? There's gonna be a small portion of people that are just gonna die out. They're just way too obese. They're not gonna be able to adapt way too fast. But vast majority of obese people are going to adapt to the survival pressure. They are going to, um, because of this new pressure, they're going to change and adapt to the environment to survive because all of us are driven by survival in some way, shape, or form. We're driven by other things, but survival is the most powerful um, instinct of ours. And you could argue that all of our instincts actually stem from desire for survival, desire to be ourselves, desire to exist, right? Everything actually stems from something very similar to survival. And so if you were to add survival pressure, obesity wouldn't exist, right? So it's important to have a certain pressure to kind of filter things. For example, other things, if we were to put ourselves into that much harder conditions, a lot of other behaviors would die out as well. For example, narcissism. Narcissism is really massive today. People, why? Because there's no survival, or even schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is something like people are out of touch with reality because they're not punished for being out of touch with reality, and therefore there's no survival pressure for you to get rid of those beliefs, and they're allowed to exist. So, how does that play into this? If you go really slow, there's no survival pressure, there's no pressure for you to improve your steering. You need to have fear of failure. You need to be able to lose and have pressure of crashing and then being down in the ditch. And that negative feeling should put pressure onto you to like avoid hitting the fucking curb and crashing. You need to put yourself in situations where you have survival pressure. Um, this is also explains why certain people that are very neurotic and feel very like uncomfortable within their own existence are ones that tend to exceed and reach like extreme um levels. For example, athletes, for example, people like Mike Tyson. There are people that were deeply unhappy with themselves, and in doing, and because of that, they had a greater degree of survival pressure. It was eat or be eaten. If you live in such a world and you have to push yourself to your limit, and if you don't, in your own eyes, you are going to die, and you're scared of that, yeah, you're going to push yourself and you're going to get better because if you don't, you're gonna crash. And those kinds of people, you know, they are like glass cannons. If they were to get it wrong, they're going to die. They are going to crash really hard. That's why a lot of like rock stars and stuff, they end up killing themselves. It's because they are going too fast and they just can't handle these, um, periods where they go off road, right? And so survival pressure is really important because it allows us to reinforce things and get rid of things that harm us. So it reinforces positive behaviors that help us survive, and it gets rid of um, harmful behaviors that are holding us back, like burdens that we don't need to carry. And only through survival pressure do you force that like natural selection of your own traits to occur. And how does that apply here? You need to always kind of edge yourself beyond what you are currently comfortable at, but below what is going to make you completely crash out. You need to perform just a little bit below your limit. You need to, I don't know, a healthy margin, I would say, is performing at around of 80% of your limit. And by 80% of your limit, I mean is at 100% is like 50-50 that you're going to crash at perfect focus. And that gives you just enough of a margin. Well, obviously, you can go higher with higher focus. If you're insanely focused, you can go to 90%. If your focus is a little bit lesser, go to 80%. And you can dynamically adjust it based on the amount of attention that you have. Obviously, if you are driving a car and you're locked in and you're like your attention is perfectly fine. You can go faster and you have lesser chance of crashing because you're okay with that low margin of error. If you're drunk and or not just drunk, let's say you didn't sleep for 48 hours and you're driving, your reflexes are going to be fucked. Your focus is going to be much lesser. And because of that, that lesser margin of error, you're not going to be able to adjust within that margin of error. So therefore, to adjust for that, you need to go slower to compensate, right? So be reasonable. Assess your current state and your ability to handle and do whatever is um, at the like just a little bit below your limit with enough margin for you to um, with a very slight margin, enough for it to have survival pressure, where it's hard enough where if you fail, you're likely going to crash, but it is also slow enough that you're not going to crash like every single time, right? So these whole concepts come together to telling you that what uh, the whole idea of conditioning yourself is you must maintain a load that is high enough to create survival pressure for your own traits, but low enough for you to not crash. And if you stay at that kind of uh, area, you will grow. Your body will condition yourself. And uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my whole theory around how do you condition yourself to improve your energy levels and your concentration. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.